The bell above the diner door jingled weakly as a gust of icy wind pushed an old man inside. His coat, frayed at the cuffs and patched in places, hung loosely on his thin frame. He moved slowly, as if each step carried the weight of years, and slid into a corner booth by the window. Outside, the morning was gray, snow gathering along the sidewalks, but inside the air smelled of fresh coffee and buttered toast. The old man cupped his hands together, rubbing them for warmth, his eyes drifting over the laminated menu though he knew he couldn't afford more than a small coffee. At the counter, Emily, a young waitress with tired eyes but a steady smile, noticed him right away. She had worked the early shift for years and could tell when someone came in more for shelter than food. Yet there was something about this man, something in the way he tried to make himself invisible, as if not to trouble anyone, that stirred her. He wasn't loud or demanding, just quiet, watching life move around him. As she wiped down a nearby table, Emily caught a glimpse of his wallet resting on the booth beside him, thin and nearly empty. Her heart tugged. She knew what it was like to count every dollar, to feel embarrassed in a place where others ordered pancakes and eggs without a second thought. She decided in that moment that no matter what, this old man would have his coffee, warm, simple, and without worry. The old man cleared his throat softly when Emily approached, his voice barely above a whisper as he asked for a cup of black coffee. His words carried a kind of hesitation, as though he feared even this modest request might be too much. Emily nodded warmly, scribbling it down though she didn't need to, and hurried to the counter. Within moments, she returned with the steaming cup, setting it gently in front of him. The old man reached for his wallet, his fingers trembling slightly as he thumbed through a few crumpled bills and coins. Before he could pull anything out, Emily placed a hand lightly over his. Her smile was genuine, not forced, the kind that made people feel seen rather than pitied. "Don't worry about it, sir," she said softly, her tone both kind and matter-of-fact. "This one's on me." The old man froze, his eyes lifting to hers, searching. He wasn't used to people offering him something without expecting anything in return. For a moment, he opened his mouth as if to protest, but Emily had already moved on, humming as she refilled a nearby table's cups, treating him no differently than any other customer. He wrapped his hands around the warm mug, holding it close as if it were a rare treasure. The bitterness of the coffee didn't matter, it was the sweetness of the gesture that settled deep in his chest. In that ordinary diner, with people chatting and cutlery clinking, he felt something he hadn't in a long time, human kindness. The minutes stretched gently as the old man lingered in his booth, sipping his coffee with slow, deliberate care. He could have finished it quickly, but instead he let the warmth seep into him, watching the small world of the diner unfold. Emily moved swiftly between tables, balancing trays, refilling mugs, and swapping jokes with the regulars. Her laughter was light, genuine, yet behind it he could sense the weariness in her shoulders, the way she pressed on without complaint. She never once stopped to rest, never let her smile falter, even as the morning rush grew louder. From his corner, he studied her with quiet fascination. She hadn't asked about his story or judged him by the state of his coat. She had simply given, without hesitation, without expecting anything back. That kind of selflessness, he knew, was rare. Too often, people looked at him and saw only wealth or status, or, in moments like this when he dressed down, they saw nothing at all. But she had looked at him and seen a person. What Emily couldn't know was that the man before her was no ordinary drifter. Beneath the worn jacket and tired posture was someone whose name filled financial pages, a billionaire who had grown weary of shallow praise and calculated favors. He had come into that diner not just for warmth, but to search for a reason to believe that genuine kindness still existed in a world that often felt transactional. And with a single cup of coffee, Emily had given him that reason. A week slipped by, and the winter chill still clung to the little town. The diner buzzed with its usual morning crowd when Emily arrived for her shift, tying on her apron and tucking stray strands of hair behind her ear. As she balanced her notepad and made her way to the counter, the owner called her over with a curious look. "This came for you," he said, handing her a plain envelope with her name written neatly across the front. Puzzled, Emily wiped her hands on her apron and carefully opened it. Inside was a folded letter, written in a steady hand. "Thank you for your kindness. You didn't know who I was, and that made your gesture even more meaningful. You reminded me that compassion is alive and well, and it gave me hope I thought I had lost." She paused, her throat tightening as she read on. At the bottom of the letter, a signature she didn't recognize, but beneath it was something that made her heart skip, a cashier's check tucked neatly between the pages. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out, eyes widening at the number. It wasn't just a tip or a token of gratitude, it was enough to erase her debts, pay for her mother's medical treatments, and maybe, just maybe, give her a chance to chase the dream she had whispered about for years, her own little cafe. Emily stood frozen in the middle of the diner, her co-workers watching with curiosity, unaware that her life had just changed forever. Emily's breath caught as she held the letter and the check against her chest, her eyes filling with tears she couldn't blink away. The diner's clatter, the scrape of forks, the hiss of the griddle, the murmur of voices, faded into a soft hum around her. She hadn't given that man her kindness to earn anything. It was just a cup of coffee, a simple gesture to ease someone's morning. Yet here she was, standing in the same worn apron, realizing that her smallest act had rippled into something far greater than she ever imagined. She whispered under her breath, almost to herself, "It was just a cup of coffee." Her voice trembled, carrying both disbelief and gratitude. She thought of the old man's eyes, how tired yet grateful they had looked, and now she understood, he hadn't been just anyone. He had been waiting, searching, testing the world to see if kindness still lived in it. And she had answered without even knowing the question. As the morning sun broke through the diner window, casting golden light across the counter, Emily wiped her cheeks and smiled. The check would change her life, yes, but more than that, the moment changed her heart. She felt a renewed determination to keep treating people with the same compassion, no matter who they were, rich or poor, stranger or friend. In that small-town diner, with coffee brewing and doors opening to new customers, Emily understood a truth that would stay with her forever: kindness, no matter how small, can transform lives.